2013 PQRS changes. My name is Dr. Jonathan Miles, and I'm the current chair of the CAP's Economic Affairs Committee. Today's webinar is the second half of a two-part series we're having on how the final 2013 Medicare Physician Fee Schedule rule impacts pathologist practice. Part one of the series, which we held yesterday, reviewed details of the fee schedule that affected those codes. We also talked in detail about the reevaluation of the technical component of the 88305 code for surgical pathology services. We reviewed CMS's decision to place the newly developed molecular pathology CPT codes on the clinical laboratory fee schedule, and also talked about the creation of the new CMS HCPCS G code for situations in molecular pathology that do require physician interpretation and reporting. If you missed that webinar, a replay will be posted online within the next few days on CAP 2013 Medicare Fee Schedule Resource Center located on the CAP Advocacy homepage. The college also has launched a PQRS Resource Center on the Advocacy homepage with additional information on the material that will be reviewed today, including FAQs, issue briefs, and recent StatLine articles on this issue. To get to this website, if you go to the CAP website, which is cap.org, just click on the advocacy link at the top, and that will take you to the specific website, which does contain all this information. For today's webinar, we're going to pivot our focus on a different aspect of the fee schedule, namely changes for pathologists in the CMS Physician Quality Reporting System, also known as the PQRS program. These changes were also detailed in the final rule. There are significant changes in the PQRS program beginning next year that will impact all providers, including pathologists. Also, these changes, they underscore the agency's commitment to shift from a fee-for-service environment to one that incentivizes cost savings and quality of care. In the current healthcare and economic environment, continued downward pressure on reimbursement will only increase as the reimbursement becomes more based on quality and cost containment measures. Today, we will explain the details of these changes. I'm joined in our conversation by Dr. Emily Volk, who is a member of the CAP Economic Affairs Committee. Dr. Volk is currently the medical director of the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at the Baptist Health System in San Antonio, Texas, and she's also served on CAP's Public Health Policy Committee. Following the presentations, we'll have a question and answer session. You can ask questions by typing your questions at any time during the presentation in the question box located in the GoToWebinar console. The console should be displayed now on your screen. During the Q&A, CAP staff will read your questions to Dr. Volk and myself. I have asked the staff to combine similar questions so that we can address as many of your issues as possible in our limited time today. An important note is that in order to ask a question, you must also be logged onto the webinar, not just calling in to the audio portion. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available for replay on the CAP website within approximately 1 week, as well as part one of this series that I mentioned earlier. We'll begin our presentation today by explaining some of the background of the program, and then Dr. Volk will discuss in detail some of the technical features of the program for 2013. I'll then close out our presentations by reiterating some of the details on these important changes, and then we'll go to your questions. So with that, let's begin. And we can have the next slide. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about this afternoon. I'll provide some brief background and definitions of the programs that we'll be talking about. We'll then spend some time about a new reporting option for pathologists that began in 2012, that is reporting through registries rather than claims-based reporting, although one can still perform claims-based reporting if they choose to, or if that's the only way you can report. Dr. Volk will then talk about what's new for PQRS in 2013, as well as talk about the value-based payment modifier program. This is a new program which is being introduced, which is in addition to the PQRS program. We'll then take your questions. Okay, what is the PQRS program? It is a quality reporting program that provides incentive payments and payment adjustments to Medicare Part B reimbursement for eligible professionals based on whether or not they satisfactorily report data on quality measures for covered professional services. The thing with the PQRS program, the thing to remember is that what you get credit for is reporting. So if you report on a measure, whether you meet the measure or don't meet the measure, as long as you report your performance on that measure, you do get credit for reporting. And that really is what the PQRS system is about. In 2015, there'll be a new modifier that will be introduced, and that is the value-based payment modifier. And this program and this modifier is in addition to the PQRS program, although, as you will see, the two programs are interrelated. The actual modifier payment adjustment will begin to be applied in 2013 or 2015 based on 2013 data. However, initially this value-based modifier will only apply to a select group of physicians, and Dr. Volk will explain in detail who those folks are. The thing about the value-based modifier is that this modifier is budget neutral, so that if some folks get a little bit more, that means other folks are going to get a little bit less. Some additional definitions to keep in mind while we're talking this afternoon. Whenever you talk about PQRS program, either the data that's collated or who it applies to, the term eligible professionals apply. And for us here in pathology, typically that means physicians or pathologists. But in the program, the PQRS program, the term eligible professional is used other than physician because other practitioners may also participate in this program, such as physical therapists and other non-physician health practitioners. The other thing which is new about PQRS is that group practices are is a term that is being introduced into the PQRS program, and group practices actually can report as a group, and Dr. Volk will be going over the specifics as to what those specific requirements are. But those of you who have practiced medicine for a while know that the definition of a group practice varies from venue to venue. For the purposes of PQRS, though, the group practice is identified as a single tax ID number, or TIN, with two or more eligible professionals as defined by their national provider identifier, who have reassigned their Medicare billing rights to the TIN. All right, we can move on to the next slide. The pathology measures for PQRS in 2013 will be the same as those that were in 2012. The measures are as follows: the breast cancer resection pathology reporting measure, the colorectal cancer resection pathology reporting, Barrett's esophagus, radical prostatectomy pathology reporting, and immunohistochemical evaluation for HER2 in breast cancer patients. 3 of these measures were introduced last year. For 2013, the coding for these measures will be the same as it was in 2012. So what we are going to be doing today is actually not talking about the coding for these measures. The coding is the same as it was last year, and if you are interested in getting a refresher on coding of these measures, you can go to the CAP website, and we had a webinar last year on this in 2012, and that is available for your use as a resource. All of these measures, all of these 5 pathology measures, have now received NQF endorsement. That's an organization termed the National Quality Forum, and endorsement by the NQF is necessary for these measures to continue in the PQRS program. Okay, in 2012, CMS released a report on the 2010 PQRS data, and we do have relatively good news in that report for pathologists. In 2010, 61.5% of eligible pathologists participated in the program, and this figure compared very favorably to the total eligible physician participation rate of 26%. The amount of eligible pathologists who participate has increased slightly compared to previous years, but remains significantly above the rate of participation in the total physician population. In terms of successful reporting, in 2010, 70.6% of eligible pathologists who participated in the program successfully reported on 50% of the relevant claims, which means that they were eligible for a bonus. This amount has actually increased over the initial participation rates, but is similar to the rate in the most recent years. The average bonus that a pathologist received for successful participation in the program in 2010 was $1,563. There was quite a large range. The range was from $3.22 to $27,509.80 for one pathologist. The bonus is based and applied to all Part B Medicare charges that you have, not just on the cases that were subjected to the measures. Okay, we could go on to the next slide. Now, this is reporting through a registry is something new for pathology. To report through a registry, you need to have at least 3 measures applied to you. So the first couple years of the pathology participation in PQRS, we only had 2 measures. So it wasn't an issue for us in pathology the first few years of the program. It is possible, if you want to continue using claims-based reporting, to do it that way. However, we now have 5 measures, and if you have 3 or more measures that are applicable to you, it is possible to report through a registry. And what is the advantage of participating in a registry or reporting through a registry? The thing is, the folks who submit through a registry tend to have a higher success rate. And this is true not only for pathology, but for all of medicine as a whole. Also, with the traditional claims-based approach, you have to submit your CPT Category 2 code at the time you're submitting the claim. However, with the registry, you do not have to submit at the time you're submitting the claim. So you can wait a while to do it, and it is thought that when you have a chance to collate data and check data, that the data is more likely to be accurately submitted. So for 2012, even though we're nearing the end of the year, it is still possible to participate in the 2012 program if you submit through a registry. And participating in 2012 has several benefits for your practice. One is that you may get or be eligible for a 0.5% incentive payment on all your Part B allowed charges, not just that of the measure. Also, it allows your practice to get experience reporting with the PQRS registry without a risk of a penalty. And that's an important point, because as we'll see in Dr. Volk's presentation, some individuals will be subjected to a penalty beginning in 2015 based on your 2013 submissions. A list of CMS-approved registries that include pathology measures is available online at CAP 2013 Medicare PQRS Resource Center. Again, that's located on the CAP Advocacy page. Okay, well, that is an overview of the background information that we have up to the new information for 2013. So I'll now turn the program over to Dr. Emily Volk, who will talk to us about 2013. Dr. Volk.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. Next slide, please. Okay. What's new for 2013, the highlights, the key messages we want you to take away from this presentation. First of all, the 2013 payment incentive. There is a 0.5% incentive payment on all Part B allowable charges for successful reporting. In 2015, there is a payment adjustment. So all eligible professionals who do not report on at least one measure in 2013 will be subject to a minus 1.5% penalty, a downward adjustment on all Part B allowable charges in 2015 based on the participation that begins in January 2013. The other thing that we really want you to understand after this presentation is complete is that in 2013 there are new group reporting options. Group practices with 2 or more members may report as a group using the registry tool, and this is different from our current year, where only individuals can report via registries. So again, beginning in 2013, group practices with 2 or more members may use the registry reporting option as a group. Next slide, please. Now, for the next few slides, I will be describing how to earn that 2013 incentive, first for individuals and then for groups. We will also talk about how to avoid that 2015 penalty, but we'll talk about that after we talk about how to earn the incentive. This slide shows what individual pathologists need to know about participating in the 2013 PQRS to earn that incentive. The criteria and mechanisms for the individual eligible provider for satisfactory reporting in the 2013 PQRS incentive are the same as for 2012. You can use a claims-based reporting mechanism, that is, report on 3 measures. If fewer than 3 measures apply to an individual provider, eligible provider, you can report on the 1 or 2 measures that apply. Measures with 0% performance are not counted. If you do report via the claims-based mechanism, you need to be successful on 50% of the Medicare Part B patients to which the measures apply. So you have to have a 50% success rate. If you choose the registry reporting, you can report on 3 measures, and as Dr. Miles has already said, you have to have 3 measures available to you to use the registry reporting option. And you need to be successful on 80% of the Part B Medicare patients to which those measures apply. So even though the claims-based reporting mechanism provides an option for those members who do not have more than 3 or more measures to report on, if the member does have 3 measures or more to report on, the registry reporting option has actually been more successful historically for folks, even though it requires an 80% success rate. Next slide, please. I do want to make one more note. For the claims-based reporting mechanism, you need to add those quality data codes at the time the claim is filed. And again, we're not going to go into great detail about how to do that today, but that is reviewed in the previous webinar we did last year. For registries, eligible providers have until the last Friday in February of the following the reporting year, so February 2014, for the registry to provide CMS that quality data. Okay, so the group practice reporting option. So in 2013, there is an incentive for group practices specifically, and this is a new thing. And it's a new mechanism for group practices to successfully participate in the PQRS program. They report on 3 measures through a registry on 80% of the entire group practices Part B patients to which the measures apply. All of the members of the group practice, that is 2 or more members who bill under the same TIN, will receive PQRS credit regardless of those who provide the service. So this provides new degrees of flexibility to successfully participate if you are in a group practice with pathologists who together report on 3 or more measures, however individually may not have qualified in the past for the registry option because they did not individually report on 3 or more measures. The key here is that groups must elect to participate in the group practice reporting option, also known as GPRO, by notifying CMS through its web interface by October 15, 2013. This web interface for electing the group reporting option will be available in July of 2013. Okay. The incentive for multi-specialty groups also needs to be highlighted. In 2013, multi-specialty group practices may also report through the PQRS GPRO web interface. CMS provides the group practices, that is 25 or more members, with a list of attributed patients. The group must report on 22 measures, or any of the 22 measures that are applicable to the patients. All members of the group practice receive PQRS credit regardless of who provided the service. The key here is if a pathologist finds themselves in a multi-specialty group that bills under the, where everyone is billing under the same TIN, they can participate successfully if the other members of their multi-specialty group are able to participate in these 22 measures that have little to do with the daily practice of anatomic or clinical pathology and are more evaluation and management type measures. However, despite the fact that they do not have anything directly to do with pathology, pathologists in these settings will receive PQRS credit. This is, again, another way that that CMS has been able to capture more eligible providers in the program in a successful fashion. This will provide a mechanism for folks who find themselves in large academic practices to participate successfully in this program. Next slide, please. So what's new for 2013 PQRS, and what does this mean with the 2015 penalty? The bottom line here is that CMS will apply a downward adjustment of 1.5% on 2015 Part B Medicare payments for eligible professionals who fail to participate at all in the 2013 PQRS. Now, CMS has tried to minimize the burden of reporting in the 2013 PQRS to ease the transition from this carrot to a stick approach. In addition to the PQRS claims and registry reporting options, individuals or groups may also elect what is known as the administrative claims option by October 15, 2013 to avoid the penalty. Again, the CMS web interface for electing the administrative claims option should be available by July 2013. This is a new mechanism that individuals or groups may use to avoid that penalty. However, this mechanism will not enable individuals or groups to earn a PQRS incentive. So that's an important distinction. This is simply a way to avoid that downward adjustment. Next slide, please. In the next few slides, I will discuss the Value-Based Payment Modifier Program. And this is a new CMS program that is linked to the PQRS that is an independent program. The administrative claims options, just to clarify before we move on to this next topic, these administrative claims are largely applicable to primary care specialties, and therefore performance on these measures is based on the care of a pathologist patients that they receive from non-pathologist physicians. Again, electing this option will help avoid the penalty for 2015. Next slide, please. Okay, again, value-based payment modifier. The value-based payment modifier will be applied in 2015 to physicians and group practices with 100 or more members billing under the same TIN. So for pathologists that are in groups of less than 100, this will not apply for 2013. This value-based payment modifier, as I said just a minute ago, is an additional program that is overlaid overlaid and linked to the PQRS program. They are linked, but they are independent. However, CMS has been made by law due to the Affordable Care Act to apply this value-based modifier to some physicians in 2015 and to all physicians by 2017. CMS has finalized what they will start applying, the value-based modifier to groups of 100 or more in 2015. This value-based modifier will be set at a downward adjustment of 1% for all Medicare Part B allowable charges for physicians and group practices with 100 or more members who do not participate in the 2013 PQRS. So again, the link between value-based modifier and PQRS is clear here. So by participating in PQRS, you can, for physicians and groups practices with 100 or more, they will, if they do not participate in PQRS, they will experience a minus 1% adjustment. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, Dr. Volk, I apologize. It appears that I skipped slide 12, which is a critical slide. So would you mind if we go back to that? We're at 14 now. We can cover it at the end. Which is about the penalties.
Yeah, that would be fabulous. I got a little off. I
apologize.
There. Okay. So absolutely. None of this is straightforward for those of you who are a little bit eyes glazing over at this point. However, I can tell you that the folks at CAP are absolutely committed to making this as clear as possible for our membership. Again, how to avoid that penalty. So the PQRS penalty, to avoid that penalty, eligible professionals who successfully report on PQRS measures in 2013, either as an individual or a group through claims or registry, will avoid that 2015 payment adjustment. Individuals or group practices who report on one measure for one patient, and this is really key, will avoid that downward PQRS adjustment for 2015. Individuals or group practices who elect the administrative claims option will also avoid the adjustment. Now, at this point, I also would like to say at the end of these slides, we do have some flow charts that hopefully will be useful tools that folks will be able to refer to as they try to navigate this maze going forward, and we will be going over some examples that will hopefully clear some of this up. Okay, Jody, where do you want to head now?
This is slide 14. I believe that we were going to go forward from here before we backed up. So
okay, that sounds great. Okay, so let's go back to slide 14 again. Okay, so let me just reiterate. We have the PQRS program. We've talked about that. In addition to the PQRS program, we have this thing called the Value-Based Payment Modifier, or the VBM. The Value-Based Payment Modifier will be applied in 2015 to physicians and group practices with 100 or more members who bill under the same TIN. So again, I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. Pathologists in practices of 99 members or less will not be affected by this in 2013. However, by law, the value-based modifier will have to be applied to all physicians by 2017. The value-based modifier will be set at -1% for all Medicare Part B allowable charges for physicians in these large group practices with 100 or more members who do not participate in the PQRS program. So you see the link here between the PQRS and the value-based modifier. Okay, thanks, Jody. Can you go to the next slide? So how do you avoid that downward adjustment of the value-based modifier? Again, for 2013, most pathologists will not be affected by this. However, those of you who practice in groups of 100 or more need to elect one of the group practice reporting options via the CMS web interface by October 15, 2013 in order to avoid that downward adjustment of all of your Medicare Part B charges. You can use a couple of different methodologies to accomplish this. Registry group reporting, the GPro web tool for multi-specialty practices, should that apply to you, or the administrative claims option. The value-based modifier will be set at 0% for all group practices with 100 or more members who participate in the PQRS program as a group by reporting on at least one measure. So you will avoid that downward adjustment, again, by reporting on at least one measure in the PQRS program. The next slide, please. Okay, there are positive adjustments possible with the value-based modifier program. Group practices may choose how CMS applies this value-based modifier. You can have that value-based modifier set at 0.0%, that is no downward adjustment for 2015, or you can elect to set that value-based modifier through quality tiering. That means that you elect to have your value-based modifier calculated based on quality as measured by CMS, performance on measures, and cost of care. Again, this is evaluated with calculations created by CMS, and you can have a possible upward adjustment or a -1% downward adjustment, and that is the basement adjustment. The -1% is as far down as we're told it will go for the 2015 Medicare Part B allowable charges. Now, we do not have time to go into the methodology for calculating the VBM via quality tiering, but we will have a link to this CMS presentation on the calculation at the end of these slides. So at this point, we'd like to go into some case studies. So case study number 1, a pathology practice with 10 members has decided that they would like to participate in the 2013 PQRS program. Only 3 members of the practice have applicable measures in the PQRS. How can this practice qualify for the 2013 PQRS incentive and avoid the 2015 PQRS penalty? Next slide, please. Okay. The answer is using that registry group practice option or the administrative claims option through the CMS, back one slide, please, through the CMS web interface by October 15, 2015. The web interface, again, on this program should be available by July 2013 on that CMS website. Now, with the registry option, the group practice enters into an appropriate business associate agreement with a qualified registry, and there are a number of them, that provides for the registry's receipt of patient-specific data and disclosure of that data to CMS on behalf of these eligible providers. The registry successfully submits PQRS quality data to CMS on behalf of those eligible professionals by February 2014. If providers choose that administrative claims option instead of the registry group practice option, they will avoid that downward adjustment but do not qualify for the incentive payment. Next slide, please. Okay, next case study. A pathologist is in solo practice and would like to participate in the 2013 PQRS. How can this pathologist qualify for the 2013 PQRS incentive and avoid that 2015 PQRS penalty? Next slide. The solo practitioner may participate through claims or registry bonus through a registry for both bonus and avoidance of penalty. The registry reporting option, the eligible professional must report on 80% of the eligible cases on 3 measures. In the claims reporting option, the eligible professional must report on 50% of eligible cases. Again, we've seen this 80%, 50% discrepancy between the registry and claims-based reporting option earlier in this presentation. Even though it requires a higher rate of participation with the registry reporting option requiring 80% of eligible cases be reported upon, this option has historically been more successful for those eligible providers who use that registry tool. The claims-based reporting only requires 50% of eligible cases to be reported. However, it requires that each of these claims be touched at the time of submission and the appropriate codes included. If a solo practitioner merely wants to avoid the penalty, they may elect to participate in the administrative claims option. Next slide, please. What if a pathologist is in a large academic multi-specialty group billing under the same TIN number? With 180 practitioners who would all like to earn the 2013 PQRS incentive and avoid that 2015 PQRS penalty and VBM downward adjustment. What should this pathologist and their partners do? Next slide. This large group practice can elect one of the 3 group practice reporting or GPRO reporting options through that CMS web interface by October 15, 2013, and choose either the 0% value-based modifier adjustment, meaning no adjustment, no downward adjustment, or they can throw their hat in the ring with quality tiering. The group practice must then report on patients via the mechanism elected. So if they choose the registry reporting option, they report on 3 measures for 80% of the group's patients by February 2014. That would result in a successful interaction. GPRO web interface, they report on 22 measures. Again, these are non-pathology-based measures on patients attributed to the group by CMS in early 2014. The third option is that they choose the administrative claims option. CMS will calculate their performance based on their formulas. However, no PQRS bonus or penalty will be rendered, and the value-based modifier will be applied per the group's choice, whether they choose no adjustment or to be performance-based upward or downward adjustment. Next slide. So the Medicare Shared Savings Program, eligible eligible professionals who are participating in an ACO in the CMS Medicare Shared Savings Program qualify for the PQRS incentive in the following circumstances. An ACO on behalf of its ACO providers who are eligible providers satisfactory report on quality measures to CMS on behalf of the ACO participants' TIN, or the ACO provider's TIN under which the ACO provider bill will receive an incentive payment based on allowable charges of those ACO providers' suppliers. Note, ACO participant TINs and individual ACO provider suppliers cannot earn a PQRS incentive outside of the Medicare Shared Savings Program. So the bottom line is, if a person is involved with a Medicare Shared Savings Program and is successfully reporting quality metrics on behalf of that, the TIN, there is no other way for them to participate. So this is an automatic inclusion for those who are involved in an ACO program. And at this point, I will turn it over to Dr. Miles.
Well, thank you, Emily, for that excellent detailed presentation as to what's new in 2013. And I think that, as you heard from the presentation, there's a lot new. And what we need to do is we need to become familiar with it as pathologists. And the first time that I saw this material, I got some of it. And if you go back and go through this a couple of times, believe it or not, it actually becomes quite straightforward. If you go to the CAP website, that's cap.org advocacy, it really does have all the information you need, and also has some nice flow charts to follow, and those flow charts are also present at the end of the slide presentation here. Now, you know, just listening to all these changes, the way I see it is, you know, to distill it down into a couple paragraphs. How I see it as a pathologist is, for 2013, I can report like I've been doing in the past as a claims-based reporting. If 3 or more measures apply to me, I can apply through the registry. And in addition, if I'm part of a group, the group can report through the registry. Or if I'm part of a multi-specialty group, I can also report that way. And, you know, why is this group reporting so significant? You know, yeah, the success rate for participation is higher, but the big thing is for pathology is that pathology is a very diverse field, and we have many subspecialist pathologists who these measures that have been developed thus far don't apply to. So if you are a neuropathologist, for example, and all you do is neuropathology, it is conceivable that you will qualify for an incentive if you're part of a multi-specialty group, or if you're part of a pathology group only who reports through the registry. So this actually, these group registry reporting is very significant for our members, particularly those that only practice in a subspecialty, including those that practice solely clinical pathology. The other thing that's new for 2013 is this value-based modifier, and an adjustment it will become reflected in 2015, but it's based in 2013 for an isolated group of individuals. Those groups of 100 or more, this value-based modifier will apply. So if you're in a big group, you want to look into that now so you know what you're going to do in 2013. For other pathologists, which would be the majority, this value-based modifier program is eventually going to apply to you, but it may not be till 2017. So more details will be coming on this new program, as you can tell. Now, Before we get into our question and answer, there's just a couple more slides I'd like to go through that actually are some potentially good things on the horizon. If we could go back, please. There is, you're correct, the next slide. The maintenance of certification incentive is something which potentially may be new for pathology. And for 2013 and 2014, CMS is going to offer an additional 0.5% bonus as on top of all the other bonuses you may qualify for on your Medicare Part B charges for physicians who successfully report PQRS measures and participate in a CMS qualified maintenance of certification program more frequently than is required to maintain board certification. Now, the American Board of Pathology has been working on this with CMS, and they have been working to have the ABP recognized as a qualified MOC program for the purposes of the CMS incentive. We are told that it is extremely likely that the ABP will be successful in qualifying the maintenance of certification program for the additional incentive, and we should have more information about that within the next few months. If you are interested in obtaining an additional incentive through the maintenance of certification program, doing it more frequently than required, it would be our recommendation that you contact ABP directly in January 2013 for details. The website for the American Board of Pathology is also listed on the slide for a contact source. Next slide. Now, for 2014, the CAP has been working to develop additional measures. Measure development actually is a very long process. It has to go through several committees. These measures also have to be tested and have to be evaluated to see if they will pass or at least get some idea will they have the potential to be endorsed by the NQF, or National Quality Forum. And for 2014, we are trying to get 3 additional measures adopted. One is lung cancer reporting on biopsies or cytology specimens. The other is lung cancer reporting on resection specimens. And we have a third measure on melanoma reporting. Again, the long-term goal here is to develop measures that will eventually encompass all of pathology and do this over a period of years as quickly as possible. Okay. Do we have one more slide, please? 2014 is the last year that an incentive for successful participation in the PQRS will be available. Eligible practitioners who do not successfully report in 2014 will be subject to a -2% penalty on your Part B charges in 2016. So initially, PQRS, it was voluntary participation. If you participated successfully, you got a bonus. Initially, when the program came out, there was no penalty, and now over a period of years, it shifted to a penalty of 2% starting in 2016. I think that the point that was seen the past couple of days is every percent counts. So as your practice becomes more efficient, to adapt to the changing healthcare climate, you want to do everything you possibly can to avoid a penalty, and that is why I think it's a good idea to participate in this program now. Okay. We'll now move to the question and answer portion of our session. As described earlier, please send us your questions electronically through the question dialog box located at the bottom of your console. As a reminder, you must also be logged onto the console to ask a question. Julie, could you please begin with the first question?
Okay, we've gotten a lot of questions about independent labs. The first one is, we are an independent anatomic lab with 5 pathologists and have always been told that we cannot participate in the PQRS program. Is that still true?
Well, the answer to that program is yes. If you're an 81 provider, you are considered a Medicare contractor and not an eligible practitioner. You're not an eligible practitioner by statute. For the independent laboratories to participate in the program, it would require a change in statute. It's a good question.
Okay, here's another one. How do you know if you're reporting PQRS correctly?
Well, it depends upon how you are reporting. This was the first year where pathologists actually could report through a registry. We have been reporting in the past through a claims-based process. On your CMS 1500 form that you would put the Category 2 CPT code and a nominal payment amount for that code. Once you do submit that claim to CMS, you would get a remittance back saying it's a non-payable code. You would at least know at that point that the code, was submitted.
Okay. This is a question about a billing service. On the registry option, on the registry, can the billing service report, or does the pathologist have to report on the registry?
My understanding, and again, this is the first year that pathologists have the option to report for the registry, so we don't have a lot of experience at this point. The pathologist actually doesn't report, the registry reports. So the billing company doesn't report, nor does the pathologist directly report. The data is submitted to a registry, and the registry reports. And again, the registry they don't have to report every claim. They can collate the individual eligible patients, and then you can submit it all at once if you choose to do so. The thing is that the data show that when you use the registry, your likelihood of success is much greater. The thing is, there's not the time pressure to do it through the registry. With the claims, you have to have the CPT Category 2 code on that claim at the time of submission. You can't retrospectively fix a claim for a Category 2 code after it's been submitted. Whereas with the registry, you got some time to look at it a few times before it does get submitted.
Also, Dr. Miles, we've had a question about where people can get information about joining a registry. So I just would like to point out to the listeners that CAP has a PQRS resource center on the advocacy landing page. It's www.cap.org/advocacy, and on that resource center there's a button for PQRS, and you'll see a listing of the registries that have pathology codes as well as other codes for the multi-specialty practices. And that leads to another question, which is, can groups with, if a group is already successfully reporting using the claims-based reporting option, do you still recommend moving to a registry to report?
Well, I mean, I can tell you from my standpoint, I think that the group needs to decide what's best for them. You know, and it's going to depend, you know, when the group decides what's best for them, it's going to depend upon how that group is set up. You know, for example, let's say you have a group of 5 pathologists, and, you know, all pathologists, you have measures that apply to them, and the group's successfully doing it now. You know, they may, and they've been getting incentive payment. The group may, you know, not want to change. They may wait. They may want to continue to report through a claims-based process. They certainly can do that. However, let's say you have a group of 5 pathologists, and let's just say that one of them is a dermatopathologist and does nothing but dermatopathology. If you submit on the claims-based approach, that dermatopathologist would not be eligible for any incentive payment because none of the measures apply to them. However, if you report through the registry using the group option, that dermatopathologist actually would get an incentive, even though none of the measures applied to them, assuming the group reported successfully on 3 measures. Emily, do you have some comments on that issue?
Well, the good news is CMS will take the most successful mechanism. So if a group does both, for instance, in this year they've been doing the claims-based reporting as individuals, and they want to try the registry as individuals 2012, and they do better with the registry, CMS will honor the better performing mechanism.
This is Faye Szymanski. I'm an Assistant Director for Economic and Regulatory Affairs, and I work with Dr. Miles and Dr. Volk on these issues. And I just wanted to add that for registry reporting, when you go to the online resource CAP, on the CAP website, we provide the list of registries, but you have to contact the registry and make an independent business arrangement with them in order to participate through that mechanism. So I just want to emphasize that we are just providing the information. We don't actually negotiate those agreements with you, for you. You need to do that independently with the registry of your choice.
And just to add on to that, this is, again, for emphasis, separate and distinctive from a relationship with a billing service.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Each practice has to determine what's best for them, and our job here today is to tell you all the different ways, all the different options you have, and how certain options may benefit your practice.
Well, speaking of benefits, this question is, will the cost of fulfilling the reporting exceed the 0.50% reimbursement? And this person is asking for an estimate of the cost of registry participation, if we know that.
Well, no, we can't provide a cost of registry information. Again, that's a private business relationship, you know, between a group and the registry. I mean, it's going to depend, like everything else, in terms of your group. You know, the size of your group, the number of measures, the number of pathologists. I mean, that's a complex answer. I think, you know, PQRS. the purpose of PQRS, the stated purpose actually is not to penalize or incentivize physicians financially. The purpose is to improve the quality of care in the healthcare system for the CMS beneficiaries. That's the goal. And initially, there was that 2% bonus in the first year. And initially, that was the carrot to draw folks into it. And folks got experience with the claims-based reporting, and that was good. You can see what CMS is doing is transitioning here, okay, to getting rid of that incentive, putting a stick in, and now sort of penalizing folks who don't meet these quality measures. So the idea here is to improve the quality of the healthcare system, not incentivize folks to make more money. So I participated in PQRS early on because I wanted our folks to get familiar with the reporting, and I did it, to improve the quality. You're not going to participate in PQRS for any financial benefit.
Okay, this question is, what if you practice in a subspecialty and you don't have any of the measures, or none of the measures apply for you, or you are in a solo practice?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. If you are if you're in practice, in a group practice, and none of the measures apply to you, if you use the group reporting option, if any of those measures apply to any folks in the group, okay, you have the potential to qualify for incentive payment, even though a specific measure will not apply to you. And if you're the solo practitioner, you can report claims-based approach, okay? You can use an individual registry reporting, or you can do an administrative claims option where you'll avoid the penalty, okay, but you won't get any incentive. And in fact, one of the flow charts, I believe that's actually chart 1, actually is for the individual practitioner, and what chart 1 does is, gives you your basic options that you have, and you do have some options. The thing is, look at this chart and see which would be best for you in your practice. And Emily, do you have any comments on this chart, or how this doc can apply this chart to their practice?
I'm going to defer to Faye. I think she's got something she wants to say here, so I'm going to go ahead and let her. I'll fill in after.
For 2013, CMS is also offering this administrative claims option that Dr. Volk briefly described in the presentation. And essentially, this option allows CMS, you register or elect the option, and then CMS calculates performance on a number of measures for your patients. And so none of those measures actually apply to pathologists, but in this case it doesn't matter because they're looking at your patients and whether the measures were applied to them. So you can avoid the penalty in 2015 by choosing the administrative option in 2013, whether or not you have measures.
So Faye, it seems to me that pathologists really need to look about participating in 2013 if they haven't done so, because if you don't do anything, you may be subjecting yourself to a penalty that could be avoided.
I think that's correct.
Yes, and that's true with or without measures that apply to your specific practice.
Okay, this is a question about the QRUR report. This person lives in the Midwestern state where they received a QRUR report for this year. Question is, what do these reports mean? And there are many measures that don't apply to pathologists in this report. And I'd like to get your reaction to that.
Dr. Miles, do you want to take that, or should I start?
Yeah, the UR report, you know, this was sort of a trial in a very select market, and the idea is to get an idea of how physicians' quality indicators for specific patients. And the issue, those of you that did get those reports were probably surprised, because things that were talked about on there really didn't have anything to do with pathology, and things that were looked at really you as a pathologist had no control over. And the CAP did become aware of this program, and we actually had some members who got some reports. We looked at those reports, and actually we have expressed our concerns to CMS directly, and we described some of the unique features for pathology. So the good news is that, you know, it was a trial, and it allowed us to see what problems that this program would have for pathologists, and where we have been able to advocate for pathology to CMS, illustrating the problems this program will have for us, and indicating that this program needs to be refined so that it would be applicable to us in pathology and would have some relevance to us.
The other thing to keep in mind with the QR-UR reports is that we're not the only specialty that is struggling, well, struggling may be the wrong word, but that is challenged with working with CMS to find appropriate measures with this new tool.
Yeah, I mean, you know, things. You know, we have problems, but, you know, these reports also have issues for other specialties such as radiology, anesthesiology, and you know, onward.
Okay, we have a question from someone from a group that is reporting. They say, our practice has been participating through the claims-based process. We have been receiving notification of the PQRS participation on the remittances from Medicare. What will happen when it is time for us to receive the bonus? Will we receive it automatically from Medicare, or is there another step we must follow?
You'll receive it automatically. It'll take a while, but you will receive it automatically, and the payment will not go to the individual practitioner, but it will go to the holder of the taxpayer identification number.
Okay. If there are 6 pathologists in a group and only 4 successfully report in 2013, are all 6 pathologists penalized in 2015, or just those who didn't successfully report? And they are using the claims-based process.
Well, if you do the claims-based report, if you had 2 pathologists who did not successfully report, those folks, would be the ones that would have a problem. They would not, any penalty would not apply to the 4 who successfully reported.
Okay, if my group is over 100 now, is the registry the only way we can report? I'm not sure what they're trying to say here, or can we report on the claims-based process?
You can certainly report claims-based for all those 100 folks. Assuming you'd have to get an incentive for all those 100 folks by reporting through the claims-based process. You'd have to selectively report on each individual of those 100 members and be successful for each 100. the thing is when you get a group that size, you tend to have some subspecialists whose practices are extremely limited, and it's for these folks, the group reporting option would be a alternative to consider, because the incentive would be applied to all 100 pathologists, even though, let's say, only 90 of the 100 had measures applicable to them.
The other thing is, to avoid that penalty, the group practice reporting option needs to be chosen for 2013. Avoid the downward adjustment by the value-based modifier.
Okay, if you have a group of 30 pathologists but only 6 are eligible for PQRS, do the other 24 have to apply for the administrative claims option so they won't get individually penalized, or does this TIN cover them?
If that group of pathologists is reporting under the same TIN, that they would then be reporting as a group, and the pathologists for whom measures apply, if they successfully report using a registry, for instance, they would be able to provide the mechanism for the whole group to be successful in the PQRS program.
Yeah, that's a great, this is, for this particular question, this group reporting option is very interesting, because you have 6 of the 24 pathologists, okay, who measures they apply, you have measures that apply to them. So if those 6 report successfully using a claims-based approach, you'd only have 6 of the 24 receiving incentives. But like Emily said, if they're all under the same TIN and you report under the group reporting option, you'd get incentive, and you successfully report, you'd get incentive for all of those 24. That's the thing. There's some new changes here in PQRS for 2013, which actually have the potential to benefit us in pathology. And you have to know what your individual practice situation is to see what's best for your practice. And I'd like to take this time now to thank Faye and Emily over the past month developing these flow charts, because they are at the back of the slide presentation, and they really do tell us what we need to do in pathology and what our options are.
Okay, this one is, we have 1 dermatopathologist in a group of 5 dermatologists. Does this PQRS apply to us?
Again, it depends on what the definition is of the group. Does the pathologist bill under the same taxpayer identification number as the dermatologist? That's the issue. If they all bill under the same TIN, yes, potentially they could use a group reporting option.
Okay, I understand that independent pathology labs, code 81, will not receive an incentive. Is it possible that they will be hit with a penalty?
That's a question. If you have no measures that apply to you, you obviously can't report. Whether a penalty will apply in 2015 or not, I don't believe CMS has issued a definitive statement on that. I know Faye is the expert actually in that and may have some additional comment.
Well, this would be a situation where you did not have an eligible provider. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I would think a penalty would not apply.
That is what I've heard verbally at meetings with CMS, that if you couldn't get the incentive, you also won't, because you were ineligible, because you worked in an independent lab, you also wouldn't be eligible for the penalty. It's not part of the rule. It's not addressed in the final rule.
Faye, did CMS give you any indication whether they're going to issue a statement on that in a rule in the future?
No, they did not. Since pathologists who bill with 81 in independent laboratories, part of the reason they cannot participate in the program is that CMS is not able to individually identify which payments go to them versus other people in the independent laboratory. So by that same argument, they wouldn't be able to tell which payments to penalize, because they don't have an independent way of identifying which payments are associated with which provider in an independent laboratory situation. Does that make sense?
Excellent. And I'm glad that question was brought up, because that does, a lot of pathologists have a lot of questions about that, and it's an area that, we have been concerned with at the CAP ever since this program came out.
Okay, this question is about, well, what is the benefit of these programs, especially PQRS, for CMS? Why was this instituted?
Well, it was instituted because Congress mandated that CMS develop some type of plan for value-based purchasing as compared to traditional, fee-for-service. And the way to think of that is the way the Medicare system works now, if you, no matter what quality of care you provide, if you perform a service for a patient using X CPT code, you're going to get X dollars. So, the idea being is that some providers do provide higher quality care or more value to the patient than other providers. And the way to think of that is sort of like buying a car. When you go to buy a car, you don't pay one price, okay? You pay a different price depending upon the level of quality and, really the level of quality. So Congress mandated CMS mandate from this, one price for all service to some type of value-based system where both the beneficiary is better served by increased quality and the taxpayer is better served because they're getting more value for their money.